Hi, this is Heidi. Episode 10, Choose Your Identity. This podcast is for people seeking confidence, curiosity, and courage to live their best life. I'm glad you're here. Hey y'all, thank you for being here for episode 10. Double digits. That was such a big deal to my kids when they turned 10. I'm guessing lots of podcasts don't make it to 10, so I'm happy and I'm just getting started. People ask if I'll run out of topics and I'm like, oh no, I've got a lot to say. So please continue to rate and review. Hi, this is Heidi on iTunes. Last Saturday, I randomly picked Annie Hoop to win a $50 Amazon gift card. She left a nice long review after listening to How to Say No. And at the end, she said, "Thank you, Heidi, for sharing such insightful information on such an important subject." Loved it. Thanks, Anna. So you guys keep on leaving ratings and reviews in iTunes, and I'm going to pick again when we get to 100. So today I want to discuss choosing our identity, how we define ourselves, what we choose to think about ourselves, what labels we give ourselves, from adjectives like strong or pretty or creative or shy, to nouns like athlete or nurse or American or mother or businessman. Even though some of these things may seem like they're visible to others or even defined by something outside of us, our identity really only resides in our mind. It is created by what we think of ourselves, who we tell ourselves that we really are. There are very successful people by the world standards who internally tell themselves that they are failures. And there are very beautiful people, again, by common worldly standards, who feel ugly inside. And culture and society might place identities on us, like single mother or welfare recipient or crime victim, and on and on. It's actually optional to keep the labels or identities other people give us. We don't have to mentally choose them if we don't want to. So why is it so important to consciously think about these qualities, characteristics, and even names we give ourselves? Everything we create and have in our lives first starts in our thoughts, our beliefs, which then create the emotions to fuel our actions. Actions to either go to the gym or actions to apply for college and then study for exams. Actions to start a business and start another one when the first one needs to close down. Actions to walk into a room and feel equal and introduce ourselves to others. Actions like applying for a job and asking for a raise. Actions like going out on yet another first date. Everything we do and create in our lives first starts in what we believe about ourselves. And here's the amazing news. We get to choose what we believe. Other people do not have the final say in what we think of ourselves and the type of person we want to be. We have 100% control of this because it resides in our minds, in the tens of thousands of thoughts we think daily. So if you have paper and pen handy, I want you to write down everything you believe about yourself, especially the words that you think describe you. If you can't write it down, think of a few of those things now and then do the exercise later. Not what another person would think about you, but what you think describes you. And if a stranger did ask you to describe yourself to them in a few sentences or using a few words, what would you say? I would quickly describe myself as happy, healthy, and an athlete. I'm organized. I'm a mother and a wife. I'm a great friend. I'm educated. I'm a practicing Christian and member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm a successful businesswoman. I'm a leader. I'm a dependable volunteer. I am confident, but I also don't like failure, and I'm actively practicing the identity of someone who enjoys vulnerability and failure. I live in New England, but I identify more internally as a warm Southern soul. Okay, so what is on your list? Now, look at that list and see, are these titles other people have given you? How have you internalized and decided that these are your identity? For example, do you think you're creative because other people told you you were? Do you want to believe it? Do you want to be creative? How many things on this list are qualities and names that you want to actively choose to believe about yourself? Now, I'm going to guess that a lot of the labels and characteristics are ones you believe are true, things you've been told over and over by others, and you have probably found evidence for them in your life. And you probably agree and want to keep a lot of them. But when you get really honest and vulnerable with yourself, do you see a sneaky belief or identity, maybe even one you've had for a very long time, that isn't helping you reach the goals and be the type of person you want to be? Do you want a promotion, but you realize that you don't identify as someone capable of the next level in your profession? Or the opposite is maybe true and happens all the time. Have you been promoted fast and find yourself with an external identity as upper management, but your internal identity hasn't caught up with it yet, and you feel a little insecure? Do you feel like a strong and resilient person? Or do you talk so poorly to yourself and put yourself down with intense negative self-talk when you fail? Do you feel lucky in all things? Or feel like the cards are always stacked against you in life? I feel pretty lucky myself. Are you a victim or a survivor of your past or a crime or other circumstance? A victim identity is very disempowering and blame-focused. A survivor identity or label gives you all the power and responsibility for your life. What we choose to think about ourselves is so critical and can impact the direction of our lives. Some identities place limits or belief ceilings on what we think we can achieve in life. If you self-identify as someone who isn't smart or doesn't do well in school, you may decide not to go to college or continue education, thus significantly limiting your career or job opportunities simply because of your belief. If we self-identify as a generous or maybe philanthropic person, we can create emotions of generosity and service, which will fuel actions of giving and helping other people. We are what we tell ourselves we are. The thoughts and beliefs we feed will grow. The most successful people are ones who can try and fail over and over again. They know their failures do not define them at all. They aren't a failure. They know their failures are just steps towards success. For a lot of us, including myself, who don't like failure, we have to work hard mentally to tell ourselves each failure means nothing about our value. In fact, each failure is actually a sign that we're showing up in life and success is just around the corner. Over the last 15 or so years, people will ask me how I've lost and maintained a weight loss if they knew me prior to having children. And I don't always have a quick and easy answer. And I think they are looking for an easy answer like, oh, I joined Weight Watchers, or I count macros, or I trained for a road race, all of which are true. But these are by no means the reason I maintained a weight loss and now work really hard to be healthy. Those are all actions I took after I changed my identity. Now, around the time that my first son was born, I gradually started thinking of myself as an athlete. I created a description for myself in my head, and I'd tell myself anytime I went to a restaurant, well, what would an athlete eat here? Or if I didn't want to wake up to go to the gym, I'd ask, well, what would an athlete do? And I kept up that mental identity, and I still do. Now, okay, I have friends who might call me out saying, yeah, athletes don't drink Diet Mountain Dew. And you're right. I'm not an athlete by any outside definition, but I've been able to use this identity and the characteristics that I've put around it to make consistent and long-standing changes, not just in my behavior, eating, and exercise, but much deeper in who I am. I walk into an airport where decades ago I'd buy candy or such for a trip, and I ask myself, well, what does an athlete buy to eat here? Then I stick to it about 90% of the time. It's easy to give someone a meal plan or an exercise schedule, but if we don't assume a new way of thinking of ourselves, permanent cooking and lifestyle changes, even changes in dress and friends and so forth, we can't maintain the changes because we didn't make them deep enough. I love that I have girlfriends now from the gym I go to dinner with. I love that our family can walk for endless miles when we travel because we've made being active and healthy a foundation characteristic of our family identity. My kids hate it, but when I see an escalator next to stairs, we all take the stairs. And I love the traditions of the road races that we do. It's all consistent with an identity that I want. And I'm not at all dependent on anyone outside of me knowing or agreeing or supporting it. It is all 100% internally driven. This week, my oldest, Carter, turned 17. I weighed roughly 100 pounds more than I do now when I was 9 months pregnant with him. So yes, there was a big baby in there, but he didn't weigh 100 pounds. And with each pregnancy, I started the next pregnancy weighing less than the previous starting pregnancy. It felt good. And I share this with you because it's applicable to any area of your life where you want to make a real and lasting change. For a very long time, like decades, I identified as an overweight, sweet-toothed, uncoordinated girl and woman until I decided that I wasn't. It really was that simple and that hard. I told myself for a long time I wasn't genetically designed to maintain a healthy weight. Since I told myself that, I then acted in ways that supported those beliefs. But once I changed what I thought and believed was possible, I found new evidence and I became the person I wanted to become. And as I look back, it was maybe an easier transition to change this identity at a time when I was also assuming a very big and new role as a mother and I quit working full-time. So if you find yourself making another big change in your life, whatever it is, even moving to a new part of the country or a new job or starting a new school or so forth, it's a great time to take stock of what else you would like to shed and change. In James Clear's best-selling book, Atomic Habits, which I love so much, he gives examples of why changing our identity is the foundation for real and lasting changes. Our identity is like the inside of an onion. Layered on top of our identity is our daily routine and our habits. And then on top of that layer is what people see as the outcomes or our life results. And as I've taught you from the coaching model, our results are created from our actions, which are fueled by our thoughts, which are created by our beliefs or the thoughts or our identity. And James says many people begin the process of changing their habits by focusing on what they want to achieve. And this leads us to outcome-based habits. The alternative is to build identity-based habits. With this approach, we start by focusing on who we wish to become. So in my case, I changed my identity and would ask myself which behavior reinforces my identity of being an athlete. Even just a few weeks ago, I went to a restaurant with friends and something amazing and yummy and very little nutrition was brought out. And I consciously said to myself, eating that isn't consistent with my identity. I had no desire to eat it. It didn't even require willpower. Now, James Clear gives a fantastic example of how if two people are resisting a cigarette and the first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit," this person still identifies as a smoker. The second person declines by saying, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." While it may seem like a small difference, the second demonstrates the identity shift already took place. The person believes it, and they're now building up evidence for this new person or this new identity. So think of changes that you want to make in your life. What do you need to believe about yourself to follow through on this? Who do you need to become to achieve the type of results you want? What other life choices does this type of person make? How do they eat or dress or watch TV? How do they talk or communicate with other people? So say you want to identify as a writer. What are characteristics of a person who has written a book? Maybe they're consistent and determined. How can you become consistent and determined in writing and in other parts of your life? As I was changing my identity to that of an athlete, I also made another big shift. I saw several friends who woke up early to exercise or do other things that I really admired. And I decided that I was no longer a night owl. I had totally identified for decades as someone who liked to stay up late and sleep in. I never had college classes as early as my roommates, but I decided I was going to be an early riser. I'd exercise early and get my day going. And at the time, my new babies and toddlers were waking up early, so I might as well not fight the system. I decided I was an early riser. I would exercise before they got up. I changed my identity, and along with that, I changed habits of what I did at night when I went to bed. I made that change on the deepest level, and I still maintain that identity. It really came from making that mental shift, and the actions then followed. I remember going to a restaurant that we frequented for years, where I had a long-standing habit of getting pretty unhealthy food. And I walked in one night, I looked around, and I said to myself, I don't want to look like these people here. And frankly, they don't look happy. I'm a happy and healthy person. These are not my people. Now, I wasn't making a judgment on the value of them as people, but it helped me realize that I wanted to be around other people who identify as healthy to help reinforce my own identity. Last New Year's, my husband and I talked with our children about 2019 and goals we wanted to have and how our children wanted to identify as people. And one son worked really hard to be a finisher. That was the identity and the word he chose, finisher. He visualized finishing so many school projects and finishing well, and he did a great job. Another son saw some pretty specific results also. He had been on the JV lacrosse team for their school in prior years, and he decided he was going to identify mentally as a varsity lacrosse team member. He visualized being on the team. How does a varsity team player prepare for the season? How dedicated are they? What emotions do they feel in all parts of their life? What type of team player are they? He trained well for a few months prior to tryouts, and all along he was really happy to be a solid contributor to the JV team. He was dedicated and a great contributor. Now, halfway through the season, the varsity coaches started asking a few JV players to attend varsity games, and he was chosen. At the end of the season, when varsity made the playoffs, the coach again asked just a few JV players to suit up and accompany and play in the playoffs. My son was asked. All of this didn't happen by accident. It started months earlier in how he thought about himself, what he believed possible, which created emotions of dedication and conviction, which fueled his actions for training and in games. It was one of the best learning experiences for him, which he applies to other parts of his life too. He wasn't outcome focused. He was identity focused, which affected his training and his habits. He would have had a very different experience if he had thought, oh, those varsity kids are so much better than me. They've been playing longer than me. I won't be picked. Nothing good happens to me. When we think those thoughts, of course, nothing good happens to us. We believe the bad luck into existence. Now, think of social situations. Do you go places and think, oh, this isn't my league? These people are above me in income or lifestyle or education. I've walked through the beautiful campuses of Harvard and MIT here in Boston and for sure thought, wow, these people here are really smart. But I don't think of them as above me. I don't make it mean anything bad about me that maybe their SAT score was a little higher than mine. Now, it's important to watch the subconscious ways in which we identify ourselves as being worthy or equal to participate in certain groups, either social or business. It's easy and totally human to have this cognitive dissonance. We all do it. Just watch yourself and how these thoughts affect you. We teach our kids that if they want to do well in school, hang out with kids doing well. If they want to make good moral choices, hang out with the kids making good choices. And as adults, the same applies. Surround yourself with people going where you want to go so you find evidence for your new identity. You've heard the quote, dress for the job you want. Well, think of dressing metaphorically. Think, feel, and act consistent with the identity you want. I help my clients visualize how the person who has met their goals is going to think and feel, what mental beliefs, thoughts, and emotions are in the land of where they want to go, like my son on the varsity team. The trick is to live in the identity of our goals now. Then we'll feel more comfortable when we get there. Right now, I'm living my emotional identity in the space of being a very successful life coach, speaking and making $100,000 a year. I make all my business decisions from this place, and when I get there, it will feel just like another day, and then I'll make new goals. Most of us go through times when a big part of our identity, especially how other people perceive us, is going to change. We change careers totally, or we retire. We get married, divorced, have children, become grandparents, are widowed. We go from being a full-time student to being employed full-time. Maybe we go from working full-time to being disabled. These are big identity shifts. We usually shift how we spend our time and the people we see. And these shifts often require us to change a lot about how we think of ourselves. But in each case, that identity change will be smoother if you have a solid base identity in place. What kind of strength do you have? How do you treat other people? What value and worth do you think you inherently have when everything else is gone? What is your resiliency level? It's very liberating for us to realize our identities can always be changing, and they should be changing. We shouldn't be too tied to a fixed identity. The whole premise of self-improvement is that we can always be becoming a better version of ourselves. Now, another tool is to mentally talk to ourselves. And I know this sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit, but honestly, it works. We have to consciously repeat to ourselves what we want to think about ourselves. We need to repeatedly, daily, hourly tell ourselves what we want to believe. I am strong. I am healthy. I love my body. I am a great friend. I am confident and people love me, and so on. I'm a successful lawyer or artist. Say it out loud as much as you can. Write it down. The more you say it and believe it and create the emotions you think you'll have when you reach your goals, you'll find evidence for this identity in your life today. When we are firm in who we are and want to be, the actions of how to get there will come much easier. And it's okay if other people don't agree with our new identity at first, because we are the only ones who need to believe in ourselves. So if you would like to change something in your life and need help identifying the beliefs that you need to change to make lasting change, not the quick fad diet or temporary changes, set up a mini coaching session through my website, HeidiBenjaminson.com, or send an email to Heidi@HeidiBenjaminson.com. And in my free session, I know we'll be able to find at least one thought keeping you stuck in your current results. There are 9 more weeks left in the year. In that time, you can make significant changes to start the new year having already accomplished at least one goal. I'll see you next week.